Well, a deep dive one. What's really happening from the premium petrol price spike to the industrial fuel price hike? We get you all that you need to know. Fuel prices are flashing fresh warning signs for the Indian economy, and this time the impact could go far beyond just what you pay at the pump. Premium petrol prices in India have gone up by about 2 to 2.30 rupees per litre. Now, this may sound like a marginal increase. It directly hits users of high-octane fuel, typically high-performance vehicles, where efficiency and mileage depend on better grade petrol. But the bigger concern is not petrol at this stage. It's industrial diesel. Industrial diesel prices have surged by over 20%, and that's a red flag for the broader economy. Why? Because diesel is the backbone of India's logistics and manufacturing ecosystem. From factories to freight, from power generation to backup generators to heavy machinery, diesel drives it all. So when diesel prices jump, this sharply increases input costs across sectors. Transport becomes more expensive, production costs go up, and eventually this cost gets passed on to the consumer. In simple terms, what starts as a fuel price hike, premium petrol and industrial fuel hike, in our case, could soon show up as inflation in everyday goods. Now, the big question, why is this happening? The answer lies in the volatile waters of West Asia. The region is once again on edge amid escalating tensions between Iran and Israel. Attacks targeting critical oil and gas infrastructure have only intensified, raising fears of further supply disruptions. And then there's a strategic choke point of global energy, the Strait of Hormuz. Nearly a fifth of the world's oil passes through this narrow stretch. India has in fact managed to walk a very tight rope diplomatically and successfully. And therefore, when you have around 400 vessels stuck in the Strait of Hormuz with around 200 million barrels of oil, there are Indian vessels navigating Hormuz and heading back. But despite the Indian war diplomacy, the situation is volatile. But with all that's happening in the Gulf region, in West Asia region, look at how the Gulf countries are looking at India.
Just about all the GCC states, it's pretty clear that they see India as a future superpower, not just as a sort of place to receive labor and send capital, but as a major arbiter of 21st century life. If not immediately, then certainly over time. That's the direction of traffic. They all see it. They all admire it. That's why you have a deal with a country like Oman, but it's also why Modi and Mohammed bin Zayed have this exceptionally close relationship. The Saudis see that too. And I think that they probably are calculating that whatever they feel they want and need from Pakistan as a matter of security, they're determined to compartmentalize that part of their relationship.
But despite the Indian war diplomacy, the situation is volatile, and war always leaves countries worse off. So now you have Iran announcing if ships are to cross Hormuz, the cost will be $2 million per vessel. $2 million per vessel. The ramifications are massive on transport of now lesser produced and available oil. So what are we seeing really as a global crisis is playing out at our backyard? And there's another layer to this crisis, the LPG situation. Long lines of migrant workers flocking the railway station in Gujarat's Surat. The visuals on your screen, indications of what lies ahead. But what really does all of this signify? What lies ahead? Let's get you a panel of experts to really help you navigate your fears, your understanding, and the complexities that face us all. I'm being joined by Mithali Nikore at this time, economist and a founder with the Nikore Associates. Surinder Singh Lali, who is a geopolitics and foreign affairs analyst. Bibek Banerjee, General Secretary, Delhi Petrol Dealers Association. So let me just straight come at this point to you, Surinder Singh Lali. What does this really mean? Break this down for us, What are we looking at? Firstly, explain to us why have these prices seen a surge? When we talk about premium petrol, it's not a, it's a very small percentage of India that uses premium petrol. But then you have the industrial diesel that has seen almost a 25% spike. Explain to us, why is this happening?
Thank you, Sneha. Such a pleasure and honor for me to be here. And, Sneha, let me open this up for you. Why this has happened? Because a mercantilist president of the United States chose a war of his choice without much of due diligence, without listening to much of his advisors. And then how AIPAC and the State of Israel, yes, the State of Israel, the AIPAC lobby, which is the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee, influenced the Pentagon and the White House in opening this up. I mean, as they say, this is not my monkey, this is not my circus, but unfortunately, the entire world has become a kabuki circus. Now what has happened is that the whole world is becoming a party to it. First, the Americans threw the NATO countries under the bus, and now the GCCs are getting involved. And involved to the point where Dr. Majid Ansari, advisor to the Qatari PM, condemned the State of Israel for, attacking the south part, which is where, the LPG and then the Strait of Hormuz, where all of the gasoline comes from. So opening this up and now narrowing it down is very unfortunate that it is somebody else, for reasons best known to them, inflicted this war, and now the entire world is getting involved without a choice. And not only just petrol and diesel, of course, petrol and diesel is the backbone of every economy.
Sure.
But let's not undermine the 10 million Indians who live, in the GCC countries, and $40 billion of foreign exchange that we get. So this is like stirring the hornet's nest. It's, you hit one aspect of it and then everything else falls apart. So, but let me conclude this by saying that this is going to get a lot bigger, with the Americans getting 3,000 Marines in that part of the world and trying to control the Kurg Island than it is. So this is probably going to go more south than it goes, north, and it's going to trickle down to the hinterland of India too, because petrol, diesel, gasoline, the fertilizers. I mean, the fertilizers come from there. So imagine now we being an agrarian economy, our farmers are going to get affected. So this is going to pan out for the worst, if not for the best. If somebody in the United States doesn't tell them, they wake up, when you get into a hole, you don't need to stop digging. You need to control the damage. And please, somebody give an off-ramp to Donald J. Trump. Thank you, Sneha.
All right, Mithali, if I can come to you, let's just take it from where Surinder Singh Lali has left it. A very simple thing. This is going to impact at a much larger scale. This is not just about industrial fuel or fuel being used by industries. This is not just about premium petrol. Many may say that premium petrol is for a very small segment in India. But we talk about industrial fuel. How is this likely to pan out? What are you looking at as the announcement has been made today? It's a 25% hike really that we are looking at.
Sneha, for bringing me into the conversation. It's interesting that you talked about Surat, because I'm currently sitting in North Gujarat in a rural area.
Okay.
And I was in Surat just yesterday. So, I saw some of these lines and this situation firsthand. But it's not only Gujarat. I mean, we've seen this. I've been traveling this month and I've been seeing this in Chennai. I've been seeing this in Calcutta. I've been seeing it all over the country, right? The shortage is hitting everywhere. And we work very closely with a lot of industries, especially MSMEs, And MSMEs are actually the worst hit at this point in time because, for larger industries, they still have some stocks and they
Mithali,
have
just a minute,
some.
allow me to interrupt you. If my director could just play our shots for the Surat, since we're discussing about this, I think it's important for the viewers to really watch it. So if my team can just play those visuals out. Go ahead, Mithali.
The saying that, essentially MSMEs are the worst impacted because obviously they don't have any stocks. Like for larger industries, you still have some buffer stocks. Now, I feel like we are centering this conversation a lot on external factors that we cannot control. But we should actually be looking inwards at internal factors that we can control. For example, CSIR, which is the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research in Pune, has actually developed a new alternative to LPG called dimethyl ether and DME, like it's called DME. DME is already ready for deployment as an industrial fuel, and it can be an alternative to the gas that we are importing from several countries. The standards for DME use have also been issued by the Bureau for Indian Standards. Why is it not getting adopted? Because industries don't know about it. Industries are unsure how to use it and how to bring it onto their manufacturing plants. Here is where we really need someone like the government of India and of course various levels of governments to say DME is safe to use. Please use it. We are in a crisis. This is the time where you can have a transition. When we are talking about households, we should be talking about solar cookers. This is the time when, if LPG is not available, I've been talking to women, all day. They are at this point in time not, because there is still gas available. But if it was not, they would probably go and start using, firewood as they previously did as a cooking fuel. Now we have to prevent that from happening. And in order to do that, we can use solar cook stoves. We can also give out low-cost induction cook stoves. We can give discounts on electric cookers. So my point is that now, in this situation, there are a lot of technical alternatives available. We can reintroduce subsidies for electric vehicles and electric trucks in particular, because electric heavy vehicles are also available in foreign markets. We can import those, and we can also start giving a new PLI scheme, for example, for domestic manufacturing of electric heavy vehicles. So honestly, at this point in time, there are a lot of alternative available to the government. Of course, the longer term alternative is to invest more and more in renewable energy production. But I think that the focus right now has been so much on managing the crisis, which is understandable. But we have to now move towards a planning for the next 3 years, because what we're seeing is literally a reduction in capacities that could go on for 3 to 5 years.
Bibek Banerjee, if I can get you in, Bibek Banerjee, you are also the General Secretary for Delhi Petrol Dealers Association. How are you looking at what's happened over the last few hours?
You see, Sneha, the issue that we have seen is an unprecedented one. A country was attacked unprovoked and ramifications followed. So internationally, you have been seeing a lot of price hike in the fuel sector. India hasn't seen it yet. This 2 rupee hike in the premium segment is just tip of the iceberg. I mean, the government and the oil companies are presently buffering us. In the months to follow, we'll see a huge hike that will come. And petroleum products are not only petrol and diesel. If you see the fractional distillation, the various products that come out of it, each and every segment will be affected, from plastics to tar. Everything is produced through that. So we are, if there is no corrective action which is taken by the US, Israel, or the big countries, if they intervene and stop this somehow, we are looking in for maybe quite a big crisis.
What many are saying at this point is you have countries that are neighboring India, and they have already gone ahead and increased their fuel prices. You've had massive shortages in some of the neighboring countries like Sri Lanka, like even for that matter, Thailand. Bangladesh has some buffers available, but the fuel cost has increased there as well. There are several other countries. Pakistan, of course, we've known what's been happening with that. But India, the Indian government for now saying that the cost of fuel, regular petrol, regular diesel to be used by ordinary people is not going to be affected. How much of that do you take? Bibek?
Presently, it's a lot of buffer that the government of India and the oil companies have provided. I would also like to commend the government of India, which has increased the level of ethanol to 20%. Ethanol being produced locally has helped buffer the prices by the government. So that has been a huge help. But then I don't know how much can the oil companies take, how much blowback can the government take. It has to pass it on to the consumers at some point in time or the other.
Right. Surinder Singh Lali come in at this point because, you know, I think a very important point made by Bibek that there is a buffer at this point. The government seems to be insulating the people at this point, at least in what is being said, what is being claimed. You're having daily interministerial briefings. Even the question about the premium petrol was asked in that briefing as well today. But there's also a focus on diplomacy. You know, this is a time when you have around 400 to 450 vessels stranded in the Strait of Hormuz, around 12 million barrels of oil that is stuck in those vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. And you have the vessels, the Indian flagged vessels, the Indian vessels being able to navigate the Strait of Hormuz and arrive in India. There are, we've got reports that there are 2 more such vessels that are navigating Hormuz as we speak. Prime Minister of India has spoken to all the Gulf countries at some point. How much of this could be paying dividends for India in terms of long term?
Well, Sneha, honestly, we don't have much of a choice. While I have to agree with both my previous panelists, but let's understand we can't install a fire extinguishing system or a fire drill when there is a fire there. This is an unprecedented situation. And definitely the gentleman before me said that, yes, for how much can the government take? End of the day, you know, this is a case of surgery. Homeopathy and minor, you know, medicines ain't going to work. But now next question is diplomacy. It's very complicated because we cannot do away with Iran, and the United States is in a position where they're getting belligerent. So it's not going to be easy. While we've done a great job, and, you know, Pakistan, and you said that the neighborhood, Pakistan and Bangladesh are basket cases, they might just collapse the way things happen, you know. But yes, for us, it's going to be very challenging because not only do we need to worry about the inflation, we need to also keep a growth pattern alive. So it's going to be not easy, but a lot would depend, end of the day, a lot would depend on how soon this issue is being sorted out. And there are, you know, murmurs around the world where they say that India can play a big role in sorting the situations out because we are
you've had officials on record. You've had officials on record who have spoken about India being seen as a superpower, about India very successfully managing to maneuver the complications of diplomacy, of not being able to, not taking sides directly, but, you know, keeping its sovereignty, its national interest first. I think that's being recognized world over and being appreciated, whether it be the Gulf countries, whether it be US, whether it be Israel, or whether it be Iran. I think Prime Minister has spoken to all of them. Iran has allowed Indian vessels to pass through. That in itself has been a big thing. But coming to you, Mithali, again at this point, you know, a very simple thing. What does an ordinary person do going forward?
Or for ordinary people, especially women, who are at the forefront of this crisis in many ways, because they are the ones who are actually trying to provide for their families, who we've been discussing with. We are trying to say, please look for alternatives. Don't think that this is a 1 week, 2 week thing. If you're going ahead, go and invest in that, induction cook stove. It's for ranging between 1,500 to 2,500 rupees. They feel that it's a big expense, but we're still encouraging a lot of the women in our networks to go ahead and make that purchase for their families. We are definitely going to recommend to people to reduce their usage of petrol at this point. And I do think that for MSMEs particularly, there is a need for a relief package to be coming in from the government, because MSMEs are finding it very hard to tide over. Small restaurants and hotels and trade establishments, even for those, again, we are recommending please go ahead and invest in as much of electric cooking as you can, even if you have to make alternatives in your menus. At least keep the lights on and go through this period.
Mithali, here's the thing. You may get in electric cookers, you may get in electric kettles for that matter. But when you talk about, say, industrial fuel, the prices are going to, the price hike which is likely as a spiral effect is across sectors, including electricity generation for that matter. So there is only so much that people can also insulate themselves from, and how they can look at this in the future, because possibilities are that prices are only going to rise up. How much of this is something that the government can really insulate for a very long time, Mithali? Is that a possibility?
So if we look at the state of our fiscal deficit at this point in time, it gives us a good indication of where we are, right? Our fiscal deficit is about 4% of GDP. We know that our GDP will decelerate a bit in this quarter if the war is only limited to this quarter. But if it goes on longer, then of course it will decelerate our growth rate a little bit. So that gives us a room of about 1 to 2% of GDP to actually absorb the impact of of this crisis, which will be distributed across, as Vivek also very rightly said, across the subsidies that you're providing, the buffer that you're providing on the oil price. Also, the fertilizer subsidy is set to rise, because the fertilizer subsidy also, there is a buffer that is being provided. Urea prices rising on the global market, as well as sulfur prices rising on the global market. So I think about 1% of our GDP will go into financing some of these urgent immediate needs. That still gives us about 1 to 1.5% of our GDP for social protection and for putting together a package for industry for the rest of the year. This is definitely a cost that India can take, because at the end of the day, this is going to help keeping businesses sustained, like they don't shut down. And that is very important.
Right. Mithali, Surinder Singh Lali, as well as Vivek Banerjee, thank you so much, all three of you, for joining me. This is an important discussion to have. I think a lot of people have these questions in their mind. Let's just see how this pans out in days to come. Thank you so much.